Hey, what's up, guys? Coach Mac, playfastfootball.blogspot.com. Today we're going to switch gears a little bit from doing just straight schemes, and we're actually going to talk a little bit about analyzing offensive data and how to look at, during your season or after your season, how to look at some of your offensive data and some of the things that I look at and I think are crucial, pivotal things that when you analyze games you won and games you lost, and when you're trying to pinpoint where or how you lost those games, I think sometimes statistics, are a good way to analyze what you're doing in those games that you're winning and those games that you're losing, and then, try and focus in on where you need to make your improvements. And I think in the history of football, everybody has always talked about the same statistics, I think, over and over again. Obviously, turnovers is a big one, and usually if you are minus in the turnover ratio, it's tougher to win games. The more that you're minus, the lower the percentage goes down, to win those games when you're -2 or -3. And, I think obviously that's a very important one. I think field position and where you start with the football. Obviously, where you start with the football, your percentage of touchdowns go up and down, and points go up and down dramatically based on how far back in your own side of the field, or in the negative side of the field, how far back you go. When you start inside the 10, the percentages of scoring points and touchdowns is low. As you progress to the 20, the 30, the 40, midfield, and then into the other teams, obviously into their territory, your percentages of scoring touchdowns and points dramatically increases. For me, there's some, I think, to me, the three or four that I'm going to look at and share with you today, to me, offensively, are always very, very important ones. And, for me, that's obviously rushing yards per game. I think it always starts at any level of football with how effectively you run the ball and then how effectively you stop the run. So for me, rushing yards per game is a big one. Average yards on first down, and then your third down percentages. And what I'm going to do for you today is I'm going to give you what we averaged on first down in our losses, and I'm going to give you what the third down percentages are, and then I'm going to give you what we averaged on first down in our wins and what the third down percentages are. And to me, I think offensively the money down is first down. I think a lot of people talk about third down and converting on third down, and a lot of defenses talk about getting off the field on third down. And I've said this before in some of the other blogs, and in some of last year when I spoke at the Glazier Clinic on offense. I think the money down is first down. I look at third down and fourth down conversions, but at the same time, I think the thing you have to look at is what is the yardage on those third and fourth down conversions when you're going for it. All right, because as the yardage and the down and distance gets lower, your percentages will increase. Okay, so as you're 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, your percentages are pretty good. As you go to 3rd and 4, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 8, your percentages get gradually lower. Well, usually you're 3rd and 4, 6, 8, or whatever you are on third down, a high percentage of the time because of what you did on first down. So when you look at your money downs, for me, first down is a big one on offense, because I know for a fact when I'm having a lot of success on first down, it keeps me in real good third downs. And when I'm in real good third downs, then my percentage of doing well and converting on third down goes up tremendously. So for me, that's always one I'm going to look at. I'm going to look at my first down averages. I'm going to look at my third down conversions compared to my first down averages. And then I think yards per completion is another pretty big one to look at, as far as, not how many yards you throw for in a game, but when you do complete passes at the high school level, how many yards per completion are you getting on those passes? When through a standard high school season, there's going to be some teams that you play that throw it 6 times on you. There's going to be some teams that throw it 25 times on you. And, depending on the style of offense that you're playing against, the teams that throw it 6 times on you have just as good a chance at beating you as the teams that throw it 25 times on you. All right? And in high school, I think, the number of passes is so much lower than college and the NFL that I think yards per completion, to me, is a little bit better stat, because if you throw it 6 times and complete it 3 times, but those 3 completions are for over 100 yards, you're doing pretty good. You don't need to throw it 30 times. So offensively, conversely, when I look at that offensively, I don't look at so much how many yards I threw for. I try to look at yards per completion, all right? And then I try and break it down where we were real good in yards per completion and the outcome of those games. So, for us, we're at the tail end of our season, all right? We're 4-5 currently this year. We just lost a game that would have given us a chance to play for a district title or possibly second place to get into the playoffs. And we needed to win that game, and we didn't win it. And now we sit at 4-5. We only have one game left. So now you start to get into the mode where, you're starting to look at some of the things that kind of backfired on you during the year. All right, so, the way our system works, we have one game remaining. Obviously, that game is very important to us. It's very important to our players. Seniors want to win that game. So you're in full game plan mode. By no means am I saying that it's complete shutdown mode and we're already analyzing data, but during this week, I had a chance to kind of sit down and look back at the 9 games that we played and look back at, the 4 wins and the 5 losses. And you don't have the time to go through all the numbers. I don't have time to go through all the turnovers, and I don't have time to go through, defensively and completely offensively. But, I thought it'd be interesting just to pull some numbers out when you're not as successful as you'd like to be. And obviously, like I said, we were 9-1 last year. We were 4-5 this year. So now, as a 4-5 football team, as a head coach, you've got to start looking at the things that you think are going to play a role into how and why you won and lost games, so that you can, start figuring out in the offseason what you need to do to fix some of those things. Okay. So the first one we're going to look at, all right, I'm going to put up average yards rushing per game in the 5 losses and what the average was, and then in the 4 wins and what the average was. So for us, all right, in our 5 losses, we had 87, we had 246, we had 131, we had 167, and 184, okay? And that total was 163, okay, rushing yards per game. All right, so in our 5 losses, we had 163 yards rushing per game. In our 4 wins, okay, we had 216, 288, 280, and 294, all right, for an average of 270 rushing yards per game, okay? So, one of the things, obviously, right away, one of the things that sticks out in your mind as a head coach, you look and you're averaging over 100 yards more rushing per game in your wins than in your losses. So obviously that's a glaring number, all right? The more successful you are running the football seems to correlate with your chances of winning games. Now, the thing you have to consider, all right, in high school football especially, when you don't have a draft, you don't have you don't have the extensive depth chart with scholarships and 85 scholarships, there are some times where some of the stats may be tainted if your team is way better than another team, or another team might be way better than you. Okay, but I really don't feel like in the 9 games we played this year that the talent was that lopsided in any of those games that it makes that big of a deal within the numbers. So I think statistically these numbers are pretty good to look at, all right, because there really, wasn't one overwhelmingly lopsided game where, sometimes you can look at games and you might have 3 games on a schedule that you lost 60-0. All right, and maybe those 3 games, the other teams were just so much better than you. Maybe they had 5 or 6 Division I players and you don't have any Division I players, or maybe you don't even have any college players on your team. It's going to be very tough to have statistics and move the ball and do some things in those games. So sometimes those numbers are tainted, but I feel like in our 9 games there wasn't that big of a talent differential. All right, so I think these numbers are very important to look at, and the first thing you can see right away is over 100 yards rushing per game difference when we win and when we lose. So obviously how we run the football is very, very important to our chances, all right? And there's a direct correlation to how we run the football and our chances to win football games, okay? Now, as you get further into that, statistical breakdown, what you have to start looking at is, okay, in those wins and losses, especially in the losses, schematically, were we okay versus what we saw, okay? And the age-long argument in football, I think you're always going to have people that sit on both sides, or on one side of the fence or the other, is schematics or fundamentals, which one's more important? I think they're both equally important. All right, to me, I hear a lot of guys talk about fundamentals, which I understand 110%, and I don't disagree with. But sooner or later, after teaching all those fundamentals, you're going to have to put the kids in some type of scheme to be successful. Okay? And I think based on the talent of your football team, that scheme that you choose has a lot to do with the success of your football team. Okay? Not every football team can use the same scheme on offense and get away with it. Your scheme has to fit the kids that you have. Okay? Now, vice versa, all right, you can have the best scheme in the world. You can have the best offensive mind with the best X's and O's without fundamentals, okay, without learning and understanding how to block, leverage on blocks, pad level, hand placement, you know, all the little things that you need to do to block people, all right? Fundamentals in how to throw the ball, proper release mechanics, how to make hot reads, how to read coverages, depths on your routes, sharp breaks in your routes, catching the ball security with tailbacks, all those, you know, all those things that you look at. Doesn't matter what your schematics are. You can have the best scheme in the world. If you can't do those things, you're not going to be successful. So to me, I kind of go right down the middle on schemes and fundamentals. Okay, you know, and if I'm not 50-50, maybe I'm 60-40 fundamentals and schemes, because I don't think you can do one without the other. You can't just X and O people to death without fundamentals, but at the same time, once you've got your fundamentals taught, how are you going to line up and what plays you're going to run? All right, so I think those two things go hand in hand. So, you know, I think when you're looking at especially in your losses, when you're looking at the data and you're analyzing it, you got to figure out, all right, schematically, were we okay here? And if you feel like your schemes are okay, now you got to go back and look at the fundamentals in these games and say, hey, where's the big difference? All right, what didn't we get accomplished in these games in the running game? All right, you know, what didn't we block? Was it certain fronts or pressures? All right, was there anything in, maybe if you're a read team, was there anything in the read game that they took away that made you maybe play left-handed or you know, made you a solo option team instead of a double or a triple option team? Okay, so you got to look schematically first to see, do you feel comfortable with where you are or do you need to make a change? Okay, and then after you look schematically, you got to look at fundamentally. What did we do in these games? Was our leverage proper? How was our pad level? All right, did we get the doubles where we needed them? Did we climb the backers? Did we get to the backside? All right, and then you got to start breaking those down, because obviously there's a pretty good difference between when we were winning games and when we lost games, over 100 yards. All right, so that's a big one for me. It's always going to be a big one for me. You know, the better teams I've had, all right, usually starts with the ground game and how you can control the ground game and how you can run the ball on offense. I think especially at the high school level, you have to be able to run the ball on offense. It's very hard to make a living throwing the ball a lot in high school, especially on an every-year basis when you don't control the quarterbacks that you're bringing in. Okay? If you're going to throw the ball 35 times a game and you control and handpick and select the quarterbacks you're bringing in and the linemen and the receivers, I think you can do that. In high school, when you have no idea whether you're going to get any receivers, you have no idea who your quarterback's going to be, and you have no idea what your linemen are going to be, I think it's very hard to sit there and say that you're going to throw the ball 35 times a game. All right, so running the ball for me, personally, as a head coach and offensive coordinator, I think running the ball is very important. All right, now the next one we're going to look at is average yards on first down, and then the third down percentage, all right, of conversions. Okay, so again, in our losses now, okay, all right, in our losses on first down now, all right, right now we're talking about first down averages. Okay. In our losses, we were 2.1, we were 3.8, okay, we were 2.5, okay, we were 4.3, and we were 5.8, okay. In our wins now, okay, we were 3.4, all right, 8.4, 6.0, and 6.7, okay. All right, so right away, one of the things you can see is, all right, you've got 3 games here where we lost games and we were under 4 yards of play on offense, okay? And personally for me, I think, you know, 3.5, obviously, statistically, if you get 3.5, all right, if you get 3.5, 3.5, 3.5, you're going to have a measurement for a first down almost every down, okay? If you get 3.6 or 3.6 and a half, all right, you're going to have a first down every time. So I like to round up and make it 4 yards. I know for a fact I can get first downs on 3 plays if I can, you know, if I can average 4 yards a play. I want 4 yards on first down. All right, I like my second downs being 2nd and 6 or less. I feel like I have my whole playbook. Now, that number can be different for everybody. It can be different from Pop Warner to junior high to high school to college to the NFL, all right? But for me, in analyzing my data of my successful football teams and my teams that have struggled, 4 yards is right around where I want to be on first down. So you can see in three of those games that we lost, all right, we're under 4 yards on first down. So that means in 3 of those games that we lost, we were constantly in 2nd and 7 to 8 to 9. All right, statistically or on average, we were in 2nd and 7 and 8 to 9 all the time. Okay? All right, so what ends up happening on 2nd and 7, 8, and 9, you're eliminating some of your playbook. You can't run all the same things you want to run. Okay? So I think now as an offensive coordinator, you start to get handcuffed. Now in 2 of those games, we were over 4. We were barely over 4. And then you see one game that's almost a statistical anomaly where we averaged 5.8 yards per play on first down. Okay, but we ended up losing that game. Okay, but when you look at the wins, I think it's fairly obvious. There's one game where we were under 4 yards per play on first down. Okay, and that also happens to be the same game where we had the most explosive plays. All right, as far as maybe 15-yard runs or 25-yard passes, whatever you consider explosive. Okay, for us statistically, we had the most explosive plays in this game. So we had under a 4-yard average. We had the worst average of our wins, but we also had the most explosive games in that game, which meant we made a ton of big runs and big catches. Okay? Now, you can't count on those explosive plays week in and week out. So you can't bank on being bad on first down, but always turning out these huge runs and huge pass completions. All right? That's not a good way. It's not a safe gamble, not a safe bet, not a good way to make a living as an offense. Okay, but in the other 3, you can see 8.4, 6.0, 6.7. What that means is that in those 3 wins, I basically had anything I wanted to call on second down in those 3 games. Okay, I was 2nd and 2 to 3 to 4 in those 3 games, which means I have my whole run game, my whole passing game, everything I want to do on second down is now at my grasp, which makes me, in my opinion, I feel more productive on offense. Now, the other number, I think when you tie the 2 numbers together, all right, I think the other crucial number is now looking at your third down percentages, okay? So we were only 33% in the game we averaged 2.1. We happen to be 64%, okay, in the game that we were 3.8, 25% in the game that we were 2.5, 40% in the game that we were 4.3, 50%, okay, in the game that we were 5.8. All right? We happen to only be 40% in the 3.4 game here, but then we were 60% here, 45% here, okay, and 50% here. All right? So what you end up looking at is obviously the 2 lower numbers, the 2.1 and the 2.5 on first down, also correlate, all right, to the 2 lowest numbers on third down conversions, which again, I think that's the bigger number. I think first down is the money down. All right? I think personally when you look at it, my 2 worst third down conversions were on my 2 worst first down averages. Okay? So I think it's fairly safe to say that, that your first downs are real indicative of what you're doing on third down. Okay? And then, obviously, the 64% here where we lost that game, we were 64% on third down with 3.8. That's a little bit of an anomaly to the number because we were either real good on second down or maybe had some explosive plays, but obviously that one doesn't really equate. But then on the 4.3 and the 5.8, what you can look at is, okay, all right, the 5.8 and the 6.0 were 50% and 40%. So we're right around about the same number. When we're averaging 6 yards on first down, we're almost 50% conversion rate. Okay? When you get to 8.4 on first down, all right, we were 60%, all right, that night on third down conversions. Well, because you're 8.4 on first down, all right, now that game there was probably a low number of third downs because you didn't get the third down a lot. When you're 8.4 on first down, you probably don't have a ton of third downs in that game. Okay, so that game when we look at it, obviously it's one of our higher percentages other than the one statistical anomaly that's here. All right, that game obviously you're 8.4, so your percentages is higher. As you get to averaging around 6 yards per play, you go up to 45%, and then at 6.7, we were up to 50%. Okay, so again, for me, all right, I think offensively, I'm a huge, I make the guy that does my stats, I make him at halftime tell me what we were doing on first down, and I make him tell me how many runs on first down and how many passes I had on first down. That's a big down. Okay, I try not to get into too many tendencies. Normally, I'm a run-heavy first down guy. I know that's my tendency. I try to break it up when I can. Okay, that's not a great tendency to have, because I think defensive coordinators can hone in on that and play some things that they really like in the run game and be heavy in the run game on first down, because I'm a heavy first down run team. So I will try and break that tendency occasionally. But for me, I want to know, what did I do on first down in the first half? Where were we? What were our runs? What were our passes? And how are we shaping up? So that if we do make any halftime adjustments, all right, the adjustments that we have in about 9 minutes to make with our players by the time they get to a locker room, if you have a locker room to go to the bathroom, assessing the injuries, you got about 8 or 9 minutes to make halftime adjustments. So of the ones that you make, you want to make sure that you're pinning in on the right things to say, hey, we're real bad on first down in the run game, we're real bad on first down in the throw game, it was these runs or these throws. So at halftime, I like to have some first down data to look at to kind of get a feel for where I am. So again, I think that the better you are on first down, the better you're going to be on third down. It's not always, like there, you can look at this one, it's not always an exact percentage, because you can't control what goes on second down. Maybe, during this game right here, we might have been lights out on second down, and every second down call and the execution of those calls was almost perfect on second down. So it's not an exact science, but what you're looking for is you're looking for data that you can kind of correlate to say, hey, what affects us winning and losing? Okay, so offensively, I think obviously, you look at the two big ones right there, you're under 2.5 yards per play. Those are your lower percentage on third down conversions, and they also happen during games that you lost. Okay, you get up to over 6 yards a play in 3 of your 4 wins, all right, and you're over 50% in 3 of your 4 wins on third down conversions. All right, so those are numbers that I think personally, offensively, are good numbers to look at, good numbers for coordinators to look at, and analyzing how you were on offense and definitely how you were in your wins and losses. Okay, and then again, I think the other one, all right, that deserves some looking at is yards per completion. Okay, and for us, all right, in our 5 losses that we had this year, okay, we only average 9 yards per completion. Okay, we only average 9 yards per completion. All right, but in the 4 wins that we had, okay, we averaged over 15 yards per completion. Okay, so again, now you start looking at it, and like I said before, it's very hard to determine what your game plan was going in. In some games, maybe your game plan was heavy run, and maybe it's hard to determine what the score is. There's one game we fell down 21-0 in the first 6 minutes of the game. Well, your passing numbers your passing numbers go up dramatically for how many times you're going to throw the ball, and then your rushing numbers go down a little bit because you fell down 21-0 7 minutes into the game. So your game plans kind of change based on how you're playing, what the scoreboard says. There were some games we got up 21 points, and all of a sudden we're not throwing the ball anymore. Okay, so I think yards per completion is a pretty good one to look at. Okay, and again, for me, it's a direct correlation. In the 5 games that we lost, we averaged 9 yards per completion. Okay, that means that in those games that we lost, we couldn't get the ball down the field. Everything that we threw was underneath and short. All right, we didn't have a lot of yards after catch. All right, even in the quick or the read or the short game or the spacing game, everything that we caught was being tackled. Okay, and we couldn't push the ball down the field. Then you look at the 4 wins, and you're averaging 15 yards per completion. That now tells me, all right, that we were able to push the ball down the field further to get our numbers up, or we had more yards after the catch, so we were better in our quick spacing game or perimeter blocking if it was bubble game. Okay, so what those numbers tell me right away is obviously in the games that we lose, we don't do a good enough job in the passing game. All right, we don't get the ball down the field, or we don't have good enough space or perimeter blocking in our intermediate, short, or read passing game. All right, we don't have the perimeter blocked well on the bubbles, or if we're running any screen reads or draw reads. All right, we're basically getting the 4 yards on the read, and we're not doing anything with the football after that. But in the games we're winning, we're either pushing the ball down the field further, okay, or we're doing a better job in the blocking aspect of it or in the read aspect of it because we're gaining more yards on our short throws, okay? So then what that number gets you to do is to go back and look at the play calls in those games and see, number one, the big thing is in those losses, did you give yourself a chance to push the ball down the field enough? Okay? Maybe in those 5 losses, when you go back and look at your play calls, maybe you didn't have enough throws in there that actually went down the field. Okay? Then you got to go back in those losses and say, okay, on the 9 yards or on the completions, were the routes crisp? Did we get separation? All right? If it was quick game or read game, was our spacing good? Were our splits good? Okay? So now you can go back and look at your play calling and then the execution of your completions. Okay? Then you take your 4 wins and you go back and you look at the play calling and you say, okay, maybe I pushed the ball down the field more. Maybe there were more play action throws. Maybe I took more shots, all right, over the top of the defense, and that's why my number's high. Maybe I did a better job blocking the perimeter in the screen game or in the quick game, all right, or in the read game. Okay, maybe I did a better job blocking the perimeter that week, and that's why my numbers are high. Okay, but in any case, I think what you can end up finding out as you start looking at your data, you know, anytime you don't make the playoffs and you don't have, you know, a successful year, you have to start understanding how to analyze the data of your football team and start analyzing where you made your mistakes and where other teams took advantage of your offense and your defense. All right? Then and only then can you analyze yourself schematically to determine whether or not what you do on offense and defense gives you a good enough chance to win based on your schedule and the opponents that you play. Okay? So, you know, at the end of the season, as you go through, you know, now that, like I said, after 9 games, 4 and 5, no chance to make the playoffs, now I start to look back and say, okay, what did we do in the wins? What did we do in the losses? Does my offensive scheme give my kids a chance to beat the teams that I play and the defenses that I play? And where do I need to make my adjustments? You know, sometimes it's not a complete scheme overhaul. Sometimes it's just slight adjustments in the throw game and in the run game. You know, sometimes it's not even big adjustments. It's just more of one and less of another. Going back and looking at your play calls and what your kids do well, and then changing up in the offseason and saying, hey, we need to be more of this and less of that. Sometimes it is a schematic change. Sometimes you need to look at your kids, what you got coming up from your younger group, and who you play and go, you know what? Based on who's on our schedule, I don't think we can win with this, and we have to make some type of schematic change. All right? So, again, when you get into the offseason, you know, like I said, when you don't make the playoffs and you don't have a chance to make it playoffs, and now you start looking at what you did and what you have to do, and now you start analyzing, you know, and self-scouting your own team, your coaching staff, yourself. You know, for me, it's self-scout all the time because I'm the head coach and I also call the offense and the defense. So for me, it's self-scouting everything I do. So I don't have to worry about being brutal on other people or hurting someone else's feelings. I'm self-scouting everything I did. All right, so I can be very critical of myself, and I can now turn around and look at the numbers on offense and defense and say, hey, here's where we got to make some changes. All right, here's where we are good. Here's where I think we can be good with our kids. Or I have to look at it and go, hey guys, with our kids, we can't do that. We don't have enough success against the teams that we're playing. Okay, you know, so again, just towards the end of the year, some seasons are over in some states. Some people are reaching towards the end. Maybe they're in the playoffs, maybe they're out. If your season's over and you're not in the playoffs, now's the time where the football info really starts getting cranked up, because as soon as, you know, football's still fresh in your mind, and now you're working on that next season and that maybe that reload, rebuild, or retool, whatever it may be, now you're working on that next season to say, hey, I still got the itch, I'm feeling good, football season just ended, I got some free time, I want to start going to clinics, I want to start talking to staffs, I want to start visiting colleges. Where do I need to go and what do I need to look at? Okay, so at this time of year, I think, you know, analyzing data, looking at your wins and losses, looking at your offensive statistics, and trying to kind of pinpoint, you know, where you think you were good and where you think you were bad, and is there a correlation between where you were good and where you were bad? To me, I think that's very important as a head coach and as coordinators, and I think it's important at every level. I think you should do it at, you know, at the junior high, the Pop Warner, the high school, the college, the NFL level. I think everybody should have detailed stats, you know, and hopefully you have a system where you have somebody to do your stats that can break it down as well as you'd like it. I know I have, you know, for me, I have an outstanding guy that has it broken down every way I want to. And another thing statistically that's great is you can cater the stats to what you want. If you don't want certain stats, don't make the guy keep them. You know, for me, like I said, I'm heavy first down. I'm heavy on third down conversions. I want to know all those things, so I make him keep those because they're very important. But you could tailor all your stats and what you want to do with your stats and what you feel like you can accomplish with your stats to your own needs. Okay, so hopefully some of this stuff helps you guys. Maybe it helps analyze your offense or your data. Maybe it helps put a little bit different perspective on how you look at your data. Okay, maybe in one way or the other, maybe you never thought about it. Maybe you do it and you do a better job than I do. Okay, as always, I'm just trying to throw some things out there. Maybe it helps some people, figure out how to, better analyze your program, your offense, and what you're doing to see where you need to tweak and what adjustments you need to make. Like everything else we always talk about, make sure it's always about making sure your kids understand how to play fast. They're not going to play well until they play fast, and you won't coach well until you coach fast. See you next time.